Moving to our special focus this week on the sidelines of the recently concluded G20 summit in New Delhi, an important decision was taken to establish the India, Middle East, Europe corridor. A MOU for this has been signed among the governments of India, the US, Saudi Arabia, EU, UAE, France, Germany and Italy. So clearly it's a big multilateral agreement involving many countries. So what is this trade corridor? Why is it so important? Why am I talking to you about it today? Essentially, this corridor is a proposed new trade route that would include establishing rail and sea connectivity between Europe and the Middle East, and then the Middle East and India, moving on to other parts of Asia. It would stretch across the Arabian Sea from India to the UAE, potentially cross Saudi Arabia, maybe Jordan and Israel. The exact routing is not particularly clear. And finally, it intends to connect all the way to Europe, across the Mediterranean Sea. It aims to connect commercial hubs, lay undersea cables, expand energy grids, and also high-speed telecommunication lines. It aims to enhance internet access for communities, among several other things. Also, importantly, this corridor is clearly being viewed as a way to counter China's pet project, China's Belt and Road initiative that we have heard so much about, and that is potentially causing a lot of problems. Now this, of course, China's BRI is a huge infrastructure project, but it has raised concerns over that country's growing influence and, quite frankly, that country's predatory presence across 3 continents. The BRI has led to indebtedness in country after country, and they've been looking for solutions and answers and possible alternatives, and this new route could potentially provide that. Not just that, with the diversification of global supply chains, this new corridor could help reduce reliance on China, particularly benefiting Europe, which is, of course, heavily dependent on China for imports of goods such as electronics. The geopolitical alliance aside, this corridor will connect some of the world's largest economies while reducing transportation costs and time as well. It will also create new investment opportunities. However, let's face it, this corridor is an extremely ambitious and an extremely challenging project. The coordination, for example, between the countries to put up the required funds, the question of the execution of the project, who's going to be doing it? It's going to be a complicated process. And not just that, the political and security issues in some of the countries would also need to be resolved. Is Israel going to be part of this? Is Jordan going to be part of this? In fact, in what appears to be just the first of many likely obstacles in the path of this project, Turkey's president, for example, voicing his opposition as his country seems to have been bypassed. He said the most convenient line for traffic from the east to the west has to pass through Turkey, adding that there is no corridor without Turkey. Now, of course, you could contest that. There are lots of other ways to do it, including by sea, but at least that is what Turkey is saying. So yes, an ambitious project, but it is going to be challenging, and that's why it's really worth focusing a lot of attention on this. So let's try to understand where exactly this new opening to the Middle East is going to head to. Where is it going to lend itself and position itself on the atlas of the world? Great to have with us 2 real experts in the field, Ajit Kumar, former ambassador, and Dr. Waiel Awwad, senior advisor, West Asia of the Tilotoma Foundation. Dr. Awwad, let me start off with you. You're perhaps the best person to help us navigate through all of this. I've been talking to you about the geopolitics in India, in India, Middle East for a long time. How important a step do you think this is?
Oh, it's nice to see you again, Vikram. My greeting to you and to Ambassador Kumar. The question is important to see. India-Arab relations is not from this contemporary history, Vikram. Actually, it goes deep-rooted in the history. We have been connected with India for centuries. I mean, the ships used to come from the Mediterranean, coming to the Indian, to Kerala and Malabar, and exchanging the business with both the trades, and the traders stay for 6-7 months in India and go back. And that was the kind of bonds that have grown up over the years with India. Having said that, I would say that India and the Arab world relation have been very strong, even with the contemporary history. So there is no question to put this context of the new passage of new corridors in terms of the relations. It's just a culmination of the good relation that India have been building. You have more than 8 million Indians are living in the Gulf. You have more than 14 million Indians are annually in the Gulf countries. You have more than $70 billion revenue. So Indian food security, oil security, expat security goes all together in one hand with the Arab world. So India is a natural extension of the South Asia and to West Asia. So therefore, when India starts having the surplus and the capital and thinking of access to the market, so India starts thinking positively to be more proactive in the relation with the Arab world. And that's why we see the Prime Minister, ever since 2014, he has made a tremendous trips to the Arab countries, and every place he goes, there's a huge receptions for him. So this corridor actually is not new. The corridors have been always there. But what happened is that the war on Russia and Ukraine, the Silk Route of the Chinese, the American wanted to have an alternative route where you can have. Otherwise, North and South corridors have been there, whether it is with Russia, Iran, and India, whether it is through the sea. And India have always been all the ships going to the Gulf countries. So now the extension from Europe into, from the Mediterranean to Europe is also to accommodate Israel into the Arab fold. That's my final answer to you.
Right, I'm going to get into the history of it in a little more detail later in the program. The historical aspects of this are important, and I'm going to be speaking just a short while from now to Sanjeev Sanyal. But Ambassador Kumar, what are you picking up? Now look, G20 has obviously been hailed as a major success, but as a concrete development out of the discussions in Delhi during the G20, do you think from an Indian point of view, this particular development, this corridor, was maybe the most immediate and the most major item of significance to actually come out, a major strategic move?
Yes, I entirely agree. This is a tangible outcome which was agreed on the sidelines of the G20 successful summit. This is an important initiative. It will benefit India greatly, because this initiative encompasses not only India, Middle East, and Europe, but will also provide linkages in terms of trade connectivity, digital connectivity, and infrastructure connectivity. And this corridor will help India economically integrate with this entire region with ship-cum-railways, multimodal transport, including road linkages. All this will help bring down logistics costs and speed up movement of goods and people, goods and people. Digital connectivity can be strengthened. Renewable energy will get a big push, both with the interconnected grids and pipelines. This means improved mobility and logistics at affordable or competitive costs. So trade and investment are bound to grow. So India to have a high seat at this global connectivity project is really important.
Right, Dr. Awwad, what specifically are you being able to pick up on the nature of the corridor? Because it's not clear yet. Ships perhaps running from India to Oman maybe, or to the UAE, then railway connections, and then perhaps ships running across to Europe itself, either from other ports or ports in Israel, if that can be figured out, the politics of that. What are you picking up?
Well, I think it's not just simply a rail track. It's also to transport new renewable energy, to transport oil and gas and hydrogen, clean hydrogen. So all these cables and also the networking of IT networking also to be taking place in this. So it's a major project which is going to be formalized in a manner that will benefit India for sure, and India will get the access to the European and a shorter term, because in terms of economy and trades, it is 35% as per the surveys that it will be reducing in the timing of reaching the goods to Europe. So if that is a beneficiary one, why not? This is a good development, because what we need in Vikram at this stage is we need a stability in the Middle East. We need a prosperity. And if there is a stability, then such kind of a huge project can materialize. And I think that is why it is too early to judge whether it is feasible, whether it is viable, whether it is possible. I think these are the three issues has to be discussed with the expertise to find out how it can be implemented on the ground.
No, so why are you doubting the feasibility and the viability of this project? And are you doing that? Because it was sounding as if it was almost a done deal that we are going to go ahead and do this, irrespective.
It's not going to be a done deal. I tell you why. Because Israel, accommodating Israel into the West Asia with Saudi Arabia, with Emirates and Jordan, and avoiding Syria and Lebanon on this pipeline of the Silk Route, which comes with the Chinese BRI, it's exactly what's making us looking at the wider perspective of the actual things on the reality on the ground. So Israel could be because of the I2U2 that India started with the US and the Emirates, could be one of the reasons why they are increasing. But I'm saying it is not possible because we don't know. Sabotage can be anywhere. And it's a long-term process. It's not today going to happen. And $3 billion, a minimum cost of the project. So it's an overnight project.
Well, Ambassador Kumar, let me get you on the point that Dr. Awwad was just making. The India to the Middle East part, I'm sure, is much easier to solve. There are lots of historical precedents for that also. Ships running from Mumbai or from Gujarat to Oman or to the UAE. It's that northern line that is a little bit more tricky. Would it go directly from the Middle East in some manner, from Egypt? Would it go from the Haifa port in Israel, which has just been set up? How do you see that particular connection working itself out?
No, I think it can be done. It's not that this project has this economic corridor has just come up just like that. As far as I believe, there have been talks in I2U2. G7 project is there, which is backing this. And there are important countries like US and others who will back this. I think with today's technology, with all these logistical problems can be solved. After all, after some time, within 60 days, they are the experts and the officials and the team will meet and they will sort out all the details, how to go about it. So let's wait for that instead of casting doubts about it, about the feasibility of the product. I'm sure that this can be done.
All right, Dr. Awwad, now there's some aspects of this which are correct, would require other parties, such as the normalization of relations between Saudi Arabia and Israel. That certainly has a lot of discussions that are still to take place. But the other side of it, when it comes to the ties, for example, between India and countries like Saudi Arabia, that seems to be continuing to move forward at a very fast rate. Just see, we can look at the state visit that has just taken place. So do you see a lot of enhanced and accelerated activity taking place on those aspects of it, which don't require any broader talks, which don't require getting in Israel, for example?
See, India, all the countries, the stakeholders have already agreed in principle what should be done for these lines and should be that economic routes or corridor. And Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince, already have his own strategy of a new vision of Saudi Arabia. A new vision means 2030. He's quite ambitious. He's changing dramatically the infrastructure of Saudi Arabia. He's changing the concept, the thinking, the doctrine of Saudi Arabia from a hard Salafist Wahhabi doctrine into a sort of an opening society and accepting changes in Saudi Arabia. So if they succeed in doing so, then I think what the United States is trying also to tell to the world, Biden wanted to tell to his own voter next year that I am able to make a project which is beneficial for our allies in the region. So therefore, Saudi Arabia, for sure, will play a major role in doing so, in normalization of relations of Israel, but only with conditions. Saudi Arabia will not go for a full-fledged normalization of relation if they don't have the guarantee from the United States what sort of relation they wanted. And I think the cost of this relation will be the question of Palestinian issues, which everybody now trying to avoid, to talk only of economy, prosperity, that could be the source of stability. But the crux of the problem is a Palestinian homeland, whether they can get it or not. So until that sentiment, which is boiling in the Arab world, is not being satisfied with two-state solutions, I think that is where I'm saying Saudi Arabia will find it very difficult as a leader of the custodian of the two holy mosques, will find it very difficult to normalize relation with Israel at this current situation and with the problem within the Middle East. So therefore, I talk not from a pessimistic point of view. I talk from an optimistic. I wanted our region to prosper and also our people to enjoy. But is it really feasible? Do we think the United States have changed its policy? They just invaded Iraq 20 years ago. They destroyed it. Massive deception, you know it. We talked about it hundreds of times. The same thing they did for Afghanistan. They are in Syria, Libya, Yemen. So are we serious about it? Or we just simply wanted to get vote on the bank vote with we go to the ballot and decide the people that it's a successful foreign policy of the United States.
Right, and of course we have elections coming up next year. As we know, elections in India, elections in America. So I think that is a factor that we do need to keep in mind. One last word from you, Ambassador Kumar. The other strategic benefits from all of this entire Look West policy that is being pushed through and now taking a very concrete form out here. There are other strategic benefits beyond just the pure economics of it all. First of all, keeping China at bay. India doesn't want that Chinese BRI to become too dominant, so this is a very important route. And when it comes to Saudi Arabia and UAE for that matter, for India there are other benefits. Saudi Arabia has obviously been a very close strategic partner of Pakistan's in the past. So this opening up and this great close relations that are developing between India and Saudi Arabia has got other benefits as well.
It has other strategic benefits for India. You see, we have been trying to go through Pakistan for all this, the ancient Silk Route and all that. We want to trade with Pakistan and Central Asia. We have the problem of Pakistan out there, which does not allow it. So in this sense, this corridor, economic corridor, our ships from Mumbai will go directly to UAE in Dubai, and then it will enter Saudi Arabia. And so we are bypassing the entire game of Pakistan, their Gwadar port and the connecting from the inland of China to Gwadar port and the construction of Gwadar port. So we are bypassing it. So it's a strategic move by India to join this and go ahead with this close relationship, which has with Saudi Arabia. Prince Salman just visited the UAE. We have such close relations. We have what you call our kind of a free trade agreement. We have reached $85 billion of trade. The aim is to reach 100 billion. So this is an important trading partners of India, and also strategically because they also are providing energy security for our country. So I think it's a very important move by India.
Dr. Awwad and Ambassador Kumar, thank you both so much for joining us and sharing that perspective.